So we are 10 days and counting into Russia's invasion of Ukraine. There have been various economic sanctions imposed on Russia by NATO countries, as well as various soft power sanctions, such as the banning of Russia from the international events such as Paralympic Games and Eurovision, the withdrawal of Russian products from the supermarket shelves, as well as the cancellation of performances by Russian cultural organisations such as the Russian State Ballet of Siberia. You can see my previous videos on the Russia-Ukraine conflict by clicking on the link at the top of this video. The bombing continues, but NATO are still not going to implement a no-fly zone over Ukraine, which is the one thing that the Ukrainian government have asked for. We were quite happy to enforce a no-fly zone over Iraq during the first Gulf War in 1991 and over Libya during the Arab Spring. So the only reason I can see for not doing so with regard to Ukraine is the potential threat of nuclear warfare. So why has a no-fly zone not been implemented over Ukraine? A no-fly zone would have to be policed by NATO countries, and the fear is that this would lead to NATO countries having to fire on Russian missiles and airplanes identified over Ukraine. Russia could then be declared to be at war with NATO and attack NATO countries, particularly those who used to be within the Soviet Union's sphere of influence, such as Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Poland, Romania, Bulgaria, and even Germany. If Russia did that, then other NATO countries would be obliged to come to their defence, as they have committed to do so under the Article 5 of the NATO Treaty. So there could conceivably be a Europe-wide war. But the European war could easily be fought with conventional weapons. However, 3 NATO countries, the US, the UK and France, have nuclear weapons, as does Russia, and Vladimir Putin has already announced that he has ordered Russian nuclear weapons to be placed on high combat alert. There are only 2 reasons for putting nuclear weapons on high combat alert. Either Putin does plan to use the weapons at some point, or he wants to give the impression that he may use them if he has to, thereby deterring others from acting. The US, UK and France could not refuse to come to the defence of former Soviet Warsaw Pact countries that are now in NATO, because they are bound by treaty. But if they did, it is quite conceivable that Putin could order a nuclear strike, and it is reported that Russia actually has 10 times as many similar weapons as the United States. He is unlikely to order a nuclear strike on Ukraine because that would defeat the whole purpose of this war. Plus, it's likely that Russian people in Russia would also be impacted. I'm of course assuming that Putin is not crazy. So the most likely target for a Russian nuclear attack would probably be Western Europe, particularly the UK or France. And if Russia fired nuclear missiles, they would hit London or Paris within 30 minutes. We wouldn't have the ability to actually defend against a missile attack. We would only be able to monitor the missiles as they get closer. Of course, we could always respond to a nuclear attack of our own, but it wouldn't exactly protect us. So it's understandable why the US, the UK and France, and thus by extension NATO, are hesitant to get involved militarily with defending Ukraine. So my question is, what is the point of having nuclear weapons? For those countries that already have nuclear weapons, they already act as a deterrent supposedly from being attacked. But nuclear weapons are only a deterrent if potential attackers believe that you would use them, such as Putin is clearly trying to do now. But they clearly do not prevent war as a whole. After all, when Ukraine became independent in 1991 after the collapse of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War, they had one of the biggest stashes of nuclear weapons on the planet. Thanks to negotiations with the US and Russia, the then Ukrainian government agreed to give up its pile of nuclear weapons in exchange for having its security guaranteed by both the US and Russia. Well, we can all see how that has turned out. Would Russia have attacked if Ukraine had not agreed to give up its nuclear weapons? Who knows, but chances are it probably wouldn't have done. But more importantly, the threat of nuclear weapons warfare is actually preventing us from rushing to the defence of an independent sovereign nation in Europe. when we have been quite happy to do the same for people in Africa and the Middle East whose countries don't have nuclear weapons. It should be noted that the threat of nuclear warfare did not exist in 1939 when Hitler's Germany invaded Poland, thereby starting the Second World War. It was the impact of nuclear weapons when the US bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki that brought the war to an end in 1945. But if nuclear weapons are preventing us from protecting or liberating independent nations from invasion or attack by a larger power, like we did 80 years ago, what is the point of nuclear weapons? Hopefully one good thing that can come out of the current war is a renewed global mission to eradicate nuclear weapons, but I'm not holding my breath. What do you think? Please leave a comment below, like this video and subscribe to my channel.